Good morning, you're watching Addis News Hour. I'm Zolder Desalegn with the news. Thank you for joining us and do stay tuned. But before, as breaking news, the Ethiopian government has expressed support to take part in the AU-led negotiations with the TPLF. In a statement it issued, the Government Communications Service disclosed that Ethiopia will take part in the negotiations so long as they will help with the cessation of hostilities. Dear viewers, we will keep you updated on this later on. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has made it loud and clear that Ethiopia is poised to harness the reaps of artificial intelligence for its socio-economic development. The Premier stated that the remark here the previous day while the Art and Science Museum, the first of its kind in the heart of Addis Ababa. During the occasion, Prime Minister Abiy reiterated that Ethiopia is racing against time to wisely exploit artificial intelligence as it is a key factor for its aspired transformation. Demis Mukrew has attended the event and came up with the following report. Take a look.
This magnificent ring-shaped building at the center of Addis Ababa is a newly built science museum. The museum that was built within 2 years has got a circular shape to symbolize a continuous development and human wisdom in the artificial intelligence sector. It is also a symbol of Ethiopia's dedication to the future of technology. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has officially inaugurated it accompanied by respective bodies. Following the ceremony, the Premier visited various technology startups which were on display at the museum. The Premier also addressed the first Pan-African Artificial Intelligence Conference that was hosted in the museum.
The Science Museum is an imposing piece of...
During the occasion, Prime Minister Abiy said Ethiopia has attached highest consideration to ensure a digital economy.
We have placed artificial intelligence at the forefront, as the key enabler of our country's digital transformation. Artificial intelligence is a prime example of one of the most disruptive innovations of our time. It is enabling us to solve critical challenges in vital sectors such as healthcare, education, agriculture, and governance.
Noting the role of science and innovation in digital transformation, the Premier underscored that the new museum will serve as a center of excellence for the artificial intelligence sector, both at national and continental level.
Built within a short time frame, the museum grounds offer both the young and old a place to inquire, explore, innovate, and invent. Such spaces are fundamental to our growth and development as a learning society, country, and continent. It is my hope this museum will be a springboard for the emergence of various innovations.
Ethiopia hosts the first Pan-African Artificial Intelligence Conference that brings around 2,000 participants from different parts of the world. This conference is expected to enhance Ethiopia's portfolio on artificial intelligence at a continental level, on top of creating links between and among artificial intelligence operators throughout the world. Reporting to ETV, Demis Mukrew, Science Museum, Addis Ababa.
Meanwhile, the first Pan-African Intelligence Forum is being held at the Art and Science Museum, which is inaugurated the previous day in Addis Ababa. Participants underline that the process of building a digital economy is a tough task, adding the nation needs to focus on cybersecurity in addition to expanding technologies. Country representatives, international institutions, and researchers on artificial intelligence are taking part in the Pan-African Artificial Intelligence Forum. Shagai Matel has more on this.
The first Pan-African Intelligence Forum is held at the Science Museum in Addis Ababa. The role of artificial intelligence for nations' overall development is deeply dealt in the discussion. Ethiopia is carrying out various tasks on artificial intelligence.
We built a state-of-the-art data center, and we are training several AI models diagnosis of disease. In agriculture, we are developing AI-based crop disease detection. We are applying facial recognition system for our system, city institutes. We are applying, we are also in finance. We are building AI-based micro-loan system in chatbot, especially in finance sectors. We are also developing several systems in transport, education, and the public service sectors under the our natural language processing initiative. We are developing 4 local languages.
Country representatives, international institutions, and researchers on artificial intelligence are taking part in the first Pan-African Artificial Intelligence Forum. Mohammed Al-Kuwaiti, the head of cybersecurity of the United Arab Emirates, shared his country's experience on the challenges and progresses of artificial intelligence for the participants.
How to change this country and how to make it really advancing and being a leading in many of those things. That tent, after about 10, 15 years, changed to buildings. And we created something called e-government, the electronic government, trying to connect these buildings. We have Ministry of Oil and Gas, we have Ministry of Energy, we have Ministry of Education, we have Ministry of Healthcare. So all of them start connecting their buildings together. The leaders, they saw that connection, they still see that we need to do more. So they changed this e-government to something called smart government. And that smart government allows us to leverage AI, to leverage some of the applications we use in our devices.
Researchers are expected to present their studies on artificial intelligence for the coming 2 days.
Ethiopia lately opened its doors for foreign banks, and a landmark decision since the 1990s. Financial sector liberalization. This move is part of a larger economic reform package started a few years ago under the rubric Homegrown Reform Agenda. The opening of banking industry of foreign investors is also expected to improve the forex shortage in Ethiopia and access to finance, according to the justification indicated in the document. I'm now joined in the studio by Zamadine Nagatu, who is widely recognized as one of Africa's top business leaders and has received numerous global awards and recognitions. A very warm welcome to Addis News Hour.
Thank you very much.
So, if I may cut to the chase,
Right.
The rationale for foreign banking entry is that enhances competition, encourages innovation, and enables the mobilization of more resources, both foreign and domestic. What's your take on that?
Right. So, as you indicated, the Ethiopian government has officially made it a policy to allow foreign banks into Ethiopia. And a lot of people lately, the last few weeks, have actually been a very hot topic in the financial service sector and the broader economy. So what does it mean? And this is a very good question you're asking. As you know, today, foreign banks are not allowed in Ethiopia. And if you go back to put just a little perspective, 50 years ago, until 1974, there were foreign banks in Ethiopia, Banco di Roma, Banco di Napoli, and others. And there were also private banks in Ethiopia. So it's after, this is why I call it actually, when it was announced, a historic decision, because it took 50 years for Ethiopia to come back to this decision. So allowing foreign banks into Ethiopia actually should be seen as part of the overall financial service sector reform, not just as a standalone. What does that mean? In my view, for example, today there are 18 private banks. Actually, there are now 30, but let's assume the 18 that have been in operation for a number of years. But they're relatively small, not only by global standards, even by African standards, the Ethiopian private banks today. If you look at the ranking that came out just last week, the African Business Magazine, of the 100 largest banks in Africa, Ethiopia has only 2 banks. One is CBE, the Commercial Bank of Ethiopia, which is number 32. Actually, last year was number 26, and now it's dropped to 32. And then the next one on the ranking is one private bank, Awash Bank, which is the biggest private bank in Ethiopia, at number 93. That means these are very small banks. On the other hand, Ethiopia's GDP is the 3rd largest in sub-Saharan Africa. So there's a disconnect. We have very small banks which can't really support on their own. They've done their part, but they can't really support the size of the Ethiopian economy. So the equation, then you need to introduce an element into this equation, which is if we're going to grow as we expect, rapid growth in future years in Ethiopia, can these banks alone support the growth of Ethiopia? The answer is no. So you need to bring in foreign banks. Foreign banks bring in knowledge, know-how, expertise. Obviously, initially when they come in, they bring in Forex. That is not the solution for the Forex challenge Ethiopia is facing, but it does help. So especially these big banks can support large FDI and also help support the growing Ethiopian private sector. Today, as I said, these Ethiopian banks, because they're small, their single borrowing limits, for example, are very low. So when you bring in the foreign banks and you JV them, and I look at it as a partnership, these foreign banks, in my view, should be coming in as part of a joint venture. So that means they help grow the Ethiopian banks, but they also bring in their expertise. And the Ethiopian banks do have a lot of value. Even though they're small, they have a lot of value. So by marrying these two, you can help grow the private sector, both the domestic and the foreign that comes in, but also propel the Ethiopian economy to the next level. So these are just some of the reasons why I think it's an exciting decision. It's the right decision at the right time to allow foreign banks to enter Ethiopia.
Very well. Casting forward, some say there are risks involved, like when rapid liberalization is undertaken. And also there is concern with the regulatory and supervisory capacity of the National Bank of Ethiopia. How could these and other risks be handled?
These are excellent, valid points you raise it. So there are, I would say we need to manage their entry appropriately. In other words, these are very sophisticated banks that operate in free market economies. So when they come in, the regulatory capacity of, say, if it's the National Bank, has to be elevated to be able to manage both to support but also to control the entry of these very sophisticated banks. But at the same time, remember, we as a country have national interest, national security interest, national economic interest. So we also want to make sure that when they come in, these banks are in a position to support Ethiopia's long-term economic transformation. So you're right, we need to be smart. We've already set, I think the macro level policy has been set, but now the details are important. How they enter, how they partner, what is the valuation that they have to pay when they come in. But ultimately, learning from other countries. I was happy it was capped at 40% initially, but eventually we also have to give them a roadmap, say when they become majority. But at the moment, the government said it's up to 40%, which is smart. I've worked in countries where they allowed these banks to come in on their own. For example, my firm and we worked in Argentina in the 1990s, when the Argentines just let in foreign banks, and at one point, 85% of the market share, the banking market share, were owned by foreign banks. So when the Argentine economy was facing challenges, the first to bail out were these foreign banks. So we need to learn. China, for example, initially allowed only up to 20%, but by then it was already a member of the WTO. Today, of course, China has opened it up. It's the second largest economy. We also have to take it by faith. That's why I like the idea of joint venture up to 40%, and then build the capacity jointly. And in a few years, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, Ethiopian banks actually can cross border and go into the region, originally into the Horn of Africa, East Africa. But there's no reason why Ethiopian banks, with this kind of structure, with this kind of foreign and joint local partnership, can't go abroad, become multinational banks. So I like the idea. It's a very exciting time. But we should look at this as part of the overall financial sector. Eventually, in my view, for example, in a few years, 3 to 5 years, the bill will be free floating, for example. I can see the day when the capital accounts will open. That means you need very strong local financial institutions to operate in that. Ultimately, there's also no reason why Addis Ababa cannot be a financial hub for East Africa. Today, it's Nairobi. But I think considering that the Ethiopian GDP is going to grow and is already bigger than the Kenyan economy, there's no reason why there can't be two East African financial hubs, one in Addis, one in Nairobi. But this, I say, this is the kind of vision we need to look at when we talk about why do we allow foreign banks. And the other thing I've talked about is there needs to be a consolidation of the domestic banking sector. The 18 or 30 banks we have today, as I said, are too small. In my view, 18 months from now, maximum 24 months. This is just my personal view. There will only be 5 commercial banks in Ethiopia, but very large, that are able to compete both domestically, nationally, regionally, and eventually globally.
Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Zamadina.
Thank you for having me.
Tigrayans residing in Addis Ababa held demonstrations the previous day in front of U.S. and U.K. embassies in the capital and have urged the international community to put pressure on the terrorist TPLF to accept peaceful settlement of the problem. They have also called on the international community to condemn TPLF for its destructive actions that have been exacerbating the suffering of the people in the region. The demonstrators have denounced some member of the international community that are attempting to equate the government with terrorist group. The residents protest against TPLF's continued conscription of children and the youth for its war efforts, denouncing the third round of war by the group, rejecting the call made by the government for peace. Tigrayans residing in Addis Ababa have urged the international community to condemn the use of children for war purpose by the terrorist TPLF in their demonstration. The group has been using the humanitarian aid that entered Tigray for its war efforts, and the terrorist TPLF has continued holding hostage the people of Tigray due to its belligerent and barbaric acts. The demonstration was colorful with a variety of crucial messages reflected on it. Take a look. The Ministry of Education expressed confidence that the nation is in a much better position to conduct the National School Leaving Certificate exam free of any contamination. Talking to ETV, the Minister Birhanu Negga indicated that his ministry has taken the lion's share to spearhead the move for fair and successful election in the country. Efforts to grant autonomous status to universities, he said, would help curb challenges related to entrance exams administered by higher education institutions. Daniel Kasaun talked to the minister and compiled the following report. Take a look.
The Ethiopian Ministry of Education is responsible for conducting national exams. It takes the lion's share. Here with me is Professor Birhanu Negga. He is Ethiopian Minister of Education. What's new?
What we have done this year is we totally separated as much as possible to avoid any contamination in this process of providing the exam. So we are taking the kids to federal institutions, universities in the regions, and make them take the exams in those institutions where they would be housed, fed, for the whole duration of the exam time. They are not allowed to carry any instrument that would have the possibility of transmitting what the exams are to others. That is a fundamentally new way of providing these exams. This is the first time that is happening in this country, where because of that we are moving close to 970,000 students. Therefore, the logistics is humongous. We are doing it for the first time. So this is going to be a test of the country's capacity to deliver such huge logistical fit.
I want you to tell me more about the controlling mechanism in order to avoid cheating and stealing of exam papers.
First, starting from the way we prepare the exams, we have tried to sanitize it as much as possible so that there will not be any mechanisms through which the exam those people who prepare the exams are not known. They don't have any connection with the internet during the preparation of the exam. It is in a secluded place where they prepare these exams. So we try to sanitize that area, the very preparation. Then once it is prepared, the printing of the exams equally involves high-level security, both digital security as well as physical security, conducted by the Federal Police and INSA and other security institutions.
Brief me about your confidence. How successful will it going to be?
You know, when you do a new thing, the new thing can come also with its own problem. We'll see. That we will see, you know, in the next, you know, after we finish the exam and after we see how, after we evaluate what has actually happened. But for now, we are reasonably confident that we have made this, the process much more, significantly more fair and equitable to all the students than ever before in the past, to create an environment where students can only rely on their own capacities and their own hard work than anything else. But this is not to say that it would be 100% proof. We'll see. But I am reasonably confident.
Great intervention. Hopefully next week's exam will be successful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
You're watching Addis News Hour, and we are on the segment of What's Trending right here on Addis News Hour, and I'm joined by our staff member, Gosha Meliso, to talk about what's trending. A very good morning.
Thank you for having me.
So, as we cast forward to about what's trending over the past 24 hours, let's talk about, starting off with the biased report from CNN. What's about it?
Yeah, the American Public Affairs Committee, which is an advocacy group, has written a letter to CNN for its unbiased report. We remember that CNN released biased reports about the war in northern Ethiopia. So the media coverage about CNN has been misinformed, lacked historical context, and it is often speculative. So this advocacy group has written a letter to the CNN or cable news network to correct its narrative about the war in Ethiopia and to cover about the war in northern Ethiopia, balanced reporters. So Masmoon Taganoot, the chairman of the committee, wrote an open letter to CNN. That is, the committee is continued concern about the coverage of the war in Ethiopia. So CNN chose an editorial stance about the war, or shows sympathy for TPLF. The vast majority of its pieces or highlights about the northern parts of Ethiopia or the war it covers is very biased and unsubstantiated. So, according to the letter written for CNN, CNN failed persistently to acknowledge that TPLF led Ethiopia for close to 3 decades. So, it was accused grave human rights violations. So it has forgotten to this when it reports about the TPLF. And the other thing is, the regime was also accused numerous human rights violations, as I told you earlier. And as TPLF is initiated or resumed the war, the second round also prepare to launch an attack in Ethiopia, in the northern parts of Ethiopia. The other thing is, it's also marched to Addis Ababa to overthrow the legitimate government or elected democratically government, and it has also forgotten all these factors and cover about the war in biased way. The other thing is also, there is untold atrocities which is committed by the TPLF in Amhara and Afar region, and it's also used child soldiers, and TPLF rejected the AU peace negotiation. So the letter says all these things, which is done by the TPLF, and has forgotten when it covered about the northern parts of Ethiopia regarding the war. The other thing is that Ethiopia receives 500 monkeypox testing kits from Russia. As you know, the monkeypox becomes the global concern. So it's very crucial, or it's very important to the delivering of these testing kits to Ethiopia. So the Russian embassy in Ethiopia handed over 500 monkeypox testing kits to the Ethiopian Public Health Institute. These testing kits are manufactured by the Russian Center for Virology and Biotechnology Research Institute. The other thing is also here. According to the Russian embassy, the handover was made between the representatives of the Russian embassy in Ethiopia and Russian Red Cross Balcha Hospital, and the Ethiopian Public Health Institute took over the testing kits, which is delivered by the Russian embassy or the Russian Research Institute to Ethiopia. So it's very crucial for, it is a global concern, the monkeypox. This all I have for today, Zoltar.
Thank you very much, Goshu, for the trending connotations.
Thank you.
In this auspicious Ethiopian New Year, ETV English will bring you new programs that will inform and update you on major national and continental issues that matter. Sit tight and remain alert as we are bringing you new programs entitled Diplomatic Insights and Explore Ethiopia. Stay tuned for more from ETV English, your new voice of diversity and renaissance.
Some foreign aid organizations and the media have been playing a destructive role in the escalation and prolongation of the conflict in northern Ethiopia, scholars claimed. A panel discussion on international actors and civil conflicts in Africa, the case of Ethiopia's conflict in the northern part, was held the previous day. Papers were presented on humanitarian aid, intervention of humanitarian aid organizations and the media in the conflict. And among the studies presented, one focuses on the influence of aid agencies in the name of supporting the needy. Take a look.
There are people who are displaced and starved, and they need urgent need, of course. But the question is that if the aid will address to the target people, as to me, despite the aid is given to people, the interest of aid agencies is to establish their own government, implement their own political and economic motives. All their aid is related to their interests, so we need to be aware of these problems.
There are quite a lot of humanitarian aid organizations that are operating in the north part of the country. The study said, adding that there is a huge flow of resources, but it is subject to investigation whether the resource is properly used or not.
Their media is the main tool to accomplish their interest. Their media does not fulfill the right principle that the media should have. Their news is below the standard.
As reported in August, Tigray has had limited telecom and internet access for some people in the state, at least as far back as early May. Many sources have since confirmed they've received regular emails, WhatsApp and Twitter messages from contacts in Tigray for a period of at least the past 10 months. Now comes evidence from the UN itself that it has been working on providing telecom access for the Tigray state for more than a year, and it's deliberately hiding its efforts, as are the well-known writer Jeff Pierce and his partner. Kasan Jani takes it from here.
The Emergency Telecommunications Cluster under the umbrella of the UN World Food Programme confirms that it was activated more than a year ago to coordinate and provide critical IT and telecommunications services, ostensibly to support the humanitarian response to the crisis. The fact sheet can be trusted Emergency Telecommunications Cluster's website, etcluster.org, but is hidden from general viewers, and one while searching vine for any visible sheets on Tigray in its operational updates, despite a plethora of available infographics and situational reports on Nigeria, Syria, Libya, and other locales. But according to its own document, the Emergency Telecommunications Cluster claims it went operational on May 28, 2021, though sources show the region had limited internet access weeks before this. Another key concern is the fact that the ETC says it has operational and security operations centers in Mekelle and Shire, with planned telecom services for Aksum, Adigrat, Abiyadi, and Maijom. A security operations center means various scenarios for mobile phone networks, including satellite phone and VHF, UHF networks. This is despite relentless and false statements from the Director General of the World Health Organization, Tedros Adhanom, and his TPLF allies in international media and within the international system, including the EU's Joseph Borrell and analysts like crisis groups will Davison, the Tigray remains under siege. The cluster also has planned ETC services for Dansham, which is not even in Tigray, but in Walgait, a region that belonged to Amhara, but was forcefully annexed by the TPLF in 1991 and is now under federal protection. The map provided in its document therefore accepts the TPLF's Western Tigray narrative and implies that it would support and work with the insurgency to undermine the territorial integrity of the Ethiopian state. Given that the fact sheet was produced and distributed in June of 2021 and no updates are easily available, it's difficult to tell how far along the ETC has progressed in providing these services. But critics and the Ethiopian government would be within their rights to ask hard questions, especially in light of the pressure the government has become under of repair the very telecom and power infrastructure the TPLF has continuously taken down. The US, EU, and the UN itself repeatedly condemned Ethiopian public for the denial of telecom services when a UN cluster has access to the region and is clearly at work on restoring those services, hiding the progress of telecommunication operations from the general public on its website. They said the implication here seems to be that the UN can decide for itself if a sovereign state is after the challenge and can move to insert itself. In the case of Ethiopia, this was impossible as the United Nations needed the authorities' cooperation to a large extent to gain access, but the wording is disturbing. Even more cause for potential concern is that within 48 hours of a disaster, the ETC provides vital security communication services and voice and internet connectivity to assist the response community in their life-saving operations.
Germany vowed to scale up investment ties with Ethiopia. Talking to ETV English here the previous day, German ambassador to Ethiopia said Germany views Ethiopia as one of its priority partners for economic cooperation and development. Traditionally, Germany is the largest importer of Ethiopian coffee. Furthermore, a wide range of German non-governmental organizations are active in Ethiopia. Haptama Shagri sat down with ambassador and compiled the following report. Take a look.
Ethio-German relations to go back to March 1905 and 1907. The German embassy moved into its premises on a site provided by Emperor Menelik II, where it is still located today. One of the fourth biggest economies in Europe, Germany said it remains committed to boost ties with Ethiopian investment and job creation endeavors.
Our bilateral relations have been expanding, intensifying and widening, and this is of course very encouraging, and this is for instance also exemplified by the fact that His Excellency the Prime Minister Dr. Abiy Ahmed visited Germany in 2018, and the next year the return visit of the President of the Federal Republic of Germany, Frank-Walter Steinmeier, took place to Ethiopia. We have also a binational commission which is, strategically reviewing all sectors of our bilateral relations, for instance, economic affairs, where we can we improve our economic relations. It's also looking into peace and security, to development cooperation, cultural exchanges. So we have a lot of things where we are, engaging together, where we try to promote our relations, but also at the same time.
Germany is also providing financial assistance to combat food crisis and acute humanitarian emergencies. Our underlined efforts are needed to scale up the investment projects like the economic strength of Europe.
We have a lot of investments in this country in various sectors, in the agricultural sector, in the health sector, in logistics, or in manufacturing, in agriculture as well. So we are invested in many sectors. We are the fourth biggest, Germany has the fourth biggest economy in the world and the biggest in Europe. Unfortunately, our bilateral trade between Germany and Ethiopia and our German investments in Ethiopia doesn't reflect this. And me as a German ambassador, I would like to attract much more investments to Ethiopia. Now, these investments, you have to get to know that the German economy is structured in a way that we have a lot of small and medium-sized enterprises.
Germany lauds Ethiopia's effort to create a favorable investment climate for small and medium enterprises, according to the ambassador. Sustainable peace and stability is also vital to do business in Ethiopia, the ambassador said, adding, Ethiopia's current track in that endeavor is satisfactory.
These small and medium-sized enterprises, they come and invest to stay. They do not want to reap a quick benefit and then go again. They come and stay and invest. And they create jobs, they transfer technology, they do a lot of good business and look into decent jobs creation. Now, these small and medium-sized enterprises, of course, they have not, they are, how should I say, risk averse. They are somehow concerned to lose their investment. So for them, it's very important to have a safe business environment and also stability. And this is why it's so important to have peace and stability in Ethiopia so that these businesses can come and invest here. So apart from peace and stability, which we are promoting through promoting the political process, we are also very much interested in creating the business environment which creates the legal protection for German investments in this country.
Germany is one of the biggest buyers of Ethiopian goods, primarily coffee and textiles. The main German exporters to Ethiopia finished products such as machinery, engines, motor vehicles, chemicals and medicines.
As you can imagine,
Extremist Al-Shabaab claimed responsibility for the attack against government headquarters in Beledweyne. Earlier on Monday, Somalia's government announced the death of a top Al-Shabaab leader, Abdullahi Nadir, over the weekend. Haptam Ashagri has more from African News.
An attack by Islamic extremists fighting Somali government headquarters on Monday has left 20 dead and 36 wounded. The Somalia-based Al-Shabaab claimed responsibility for the attack in Beledweyne, a town more than 300 kilometers north of Somalia's capital Mogadishu.
Heavy and disastrous explosions in Beledweyne district have killed people, including government officials, civilians and soldiers. We will not cry and shout out, and this will not frighten us even if they kill hundreds or millions. We still believe that we are fighting because it is jihad for the sake of Allah. These terrorists might make us scared, but we will fight you to the death.
Earlier on Monday, Somalia's government announced the death of a top Al-Shabaab leader, Abdullahi Nadir, over the weekend. The government said the attack had been carried out in partnership with the US military in southwest Somalia. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres condemned the attack and reaffirmed the UN's commitment to peace in the country.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for watching Addis News Hour. I'm Zawad Desalegn with the news, and have a great day ahead.